All right, in this video, we are going to start talking about the very basics of some JavaFX controls. And the first control that we're going to start with is the label control. And the label, just like it says, is just a non-editable text control. So you just need some text somewhere in your GUI application, then you can create a label for it. Okay. As it says, right, it's useful for displaying text that is required to fit within a specific space. Right, and labels can also contain images as well. So maybe sometimes you might want to put an image in your application. Well, then you can do that as well. All right. So the methods that we can use to create labels, the constructors, there's three basic ones. A label with no argument. That just creates an empty label with nothing on it. And then label with a string as an argument. That will create a label with whatever text you pass to that constructor. And then if you want an image in there, then you can pass, the constructor will look like this. So some text would be the first argument to the constructor, and then whatever graphic that you're looking at, that will create a label with the supplied text and with the graphic as well. Okay. All right, and so that's what you would do. You inside your JavaFX program, you would create a label and then add it into whatever container that you want to add it into. So in this first example, in all of these examples that we're going to do in this section, we are using a pane as a as the root component. And remember, I said there's lots of containers, right? Any child class of the parent class in JavaFX, right, can be used as a container. So again, this is only an example. Okay, there's lots of others. There's anchor pane, border pane. There's HBox, VBox. There's tons of them. Okay, so we're just going to start with pane. Okay, because I think it's one of the simplest ones to use. All right, when you go to add in a label, or for that matter, any other control into one of these panes, you are going to call the following methods in there: getChildren.add or getChildren.addAll. Okay, so this getChildren method in a pane or another certain other parents as well, that will return a list of the components that are inside the pane. Okay. And then all you have to do is add to that. Use the add method. If you're going to add one element to the list, you can add it to the end of the list or at a specified position. And then if you want to add a bunch of components, or in this case labels, if you want to add a bunch of them at once, then you would use the add all method. All right, with the elements separated by commas. Okay. And then likewise, you can use the remove method to remove labels from a container. Okay. So that is how you would add the labels in. So basically, we're going to be creating some labels. We're going to be adding some labels into containers in our programs. Once the label is in there, there are certain situations where you might want to get the text that's in the label or change the text that's in the label. In that case, what you would do is use the getText or setText methods. Okay, so getText will let you access what text is on the object's label, and then setText will allow you to change the text in a label. All right. All right, so let's take a look at this label example. All right. So here I've included a lot of different of the imports, so you can see which ones we are using. Right, for the label itself, it is javafx.scene.control.label. Okay, these other ones, right, application, scene, pane, and stage, were the same ones that were in our Hello World FX label. So the new one is this one label here. I've got a lot of other imports here. These are just sort of fancier things that I just wanted to show you in case you wanted to use some of those. These really are optional, not required at this point. But a lot of times I'll get people ask me, hey, how do I do this? And so I just included these as examples, as sort of extra things for you to look at. All right, so I'm going to run through this. Right, we create our class. It's a child class of the application class. All right, and then we have to implement our start method. We um, create the root object, right? In this case, it's a pane. Again, there's lots of other ones that you can use, right? And we will use those later on. For right now, we're just going to use pane, okay? And now we are going to create some labels, okay? So here is an example where I create a label called label 1. It has text on it, label 1. Not too exciting. All right, and these two lines here, I just show you how to change the font on the label. And for a pane, right, one of the things about pane is that you can set its exact position within the pane, which makes it kind of nice. Now, not all containers act like this, but pane does, which is one of the reasons why I kind of use it at first. Because if you're laying these things out by hand, then it can be a little bit tricky positioning the GUI elements, components where you want them to be. But with pane, it's pretty easy. You give it some coordinates. So let me run the application for you, and then we can see where that label 1 is located. All right, so label 1 is located here up at the top, right? And you can see it's a giant, oh no, label 1's right here, sorry. I can barely read that. The black text on the dark blue background. All right, so label 1 is right here, okay? So label 1 has been relocated to 1010, so that would be 10 over and 10 down right here to label 1. If you look at label 2, right, it's relocated to 500, 500, which is way down over here, okay? So that's the effect of the relocating. You can kind of move those labels around where you want it. All right, and so next up is label 2. So I created label 2, and then here I show you how to change the color of the text. So you can see the text is this really kind of light blue color on label 2. So again, that's optional stuff, and just to some people are really into how it looks and those kinds of things, and that's cool. I just wanted to show a little bit of how that works. It's not, and so if you don't want to do that stuff, you don't have to. Then I relocated the label to 500, 500. That's why it's all the way down here. All right, next up is label 3. Label 3 is this one up here. All right, so for label 3, then I here applied a style to it. So with all of these FX components, you can apply styling to it. We probably won't talk much about that at all, but if you're really into that, you can kind of look up and see how that's done. Here I created a red border color on the label and changed the background color to blue. I also changed the insets, right? You can see that the label is here, and I changed the insets, and that's the distance the text is from the top and bottom and sides, right, of the label. Okay, so here you can see, like, this is the distance 20, this would be the distance 40, I believe, and then one of those is 80 and 160. Not really sure exactly, but anyway, I changed and changed the location of the text inside there. All right, and then I relocated it to 200, 200, right, which is, I think, down here. But anyway, this label, because it was big, probably displaced this other one as well here. So that's why it seems like label 1 should be up there. So let's see. But because of the size of it, it displaced this label 1. Let's just check that and make sure. If I get rid of this label, yeah, if I get rid of that, it was label 3, right, that pushed label 1 down here. So label 1, right, its position was set to 1010, so that's like where it would be. But I have a feeling something about label 3, the padding, maybe, and forced it to become bigger, label 3 to become bigger, and then change the location of label 1. So anyway. All right, next up is label 4. Label 4 is this sort of diagonal label right here, and you can see that on this label, label 4, when I created it, I applied a style to it, right? Black border color and yellow background color. I changed the font, right, to Times New Roman, size 30, and then I rotated the label. So here you can see I just rotated it by 60 degrees, and that just rotates it for you pretty nicely. All right, label 5. This one I created a label that had this image on it, the image of a star. If this file star.png is not in your directory, right, then it will not. This will not compile. It will not be able to find the image file there. So that will cause an error. But you can see what I did. If I want an image on a label, then I just created this image object. You can see how I did that. And remember the imports up there. And once I've created that image, then I can create a new image view, and then in the call to the constructor, put this image that I created right here. Okay, so that's how you can add an image to a label. And I changed the style to have a black border around it. If you didn't want this label on here, the text, right, then you could just pass the empty string inside there. All right, and the last label is label 6. Okay, and in label 6, then I created the label, a blank label with no text on it, right? So that's what it was originally. And then here later on in the program, I use the set text method to change what's in the label. All right, so you can see it has label 6. And then I show how to use the get text method as well. That's to get the text from the label. You typically wouldn't see this in a program where you are printing to the console, because after all, this is a GUI program, right? The end user is not going to really see what's in here. But it is useful. Still, system.out.println is useful for printing out messages for debugging purposes and those sorts of things. All right. So all of this code that we just looked at, all of this label code, right, that just creates the labels and modifies the labels, okay? So up until this point on line 50, right, it would just be a blank scene. There would be nothing in the scene at all, okay? So what we have to do is, after you create these labels, right, you have to add them to the root component or wherever else you're going to add those to, right? Our root component is this pane called root. Right, and here you can see I am adding those components to the pane, to the root component. All right, and so it would be the name of the root component, which is root, right, in our situation. Get children, that gets the list of all of the children of the label of the that are inside this container, and then I'm telling it to add label 3. Okay. So if you want to add one label at a time, you can do it like that. If you want to add multiple labels, right, you can have a list or multiple components. You can do that with the add all method. So just have a list of the components that you want to add. That will add that on. Okay. Then if you want to add a label at a specific index in the list, right, then you would put add and then the index that you want to add and then whatever the component is that you want to add. All right, so here, this is the code, right, that adds the children to the root component. Now, again, right, we are using Pane in this example. There are some other containers that use different methods for adding components. Okay, so this is not universal. This works for Pane and several other components, but it's going to vary depending on what your root component is. If it's a border pane, well, then a border pane has different rules and different methods for adding in components. Okay. All right, and then I just go back to the to what we talked about in the very first example, right? Once I've created my root container, that's the container, right, that contains all of the other components in the scene. Then I make a scene, right, a new scene object. In it, I tell it what the root component is going to be, this one that I just got all set up. I give it the size that I want the window so I don't have to resize it every time I run it. And then I tell the stage, okay, show that, or on the stage, put this scene, right, that I have created. So that would be like, basically, if you think back to like a theater example, it would be the curtains closed, and then, you know, the stagehands go and they set up the scene while the curtain is closed. So that's basically what this is. You're telling the stagehands, hey, go set up this scene that I just told you about. All right, and here's to set the title of the window, and then finally stage.show, that actually shows the stage, the window that contains all this stuff. And so in the theater analogy, it's like where the curtains are opening. All right, just run it one more time. And I messed something up. Wow, I messed that up really badly. Okay, it's just a comment. I forgot to add that in there. I actually deleted those comment characters when I shouldn't. All right, and so there you can see it. That's what we get. All right, and here you can see the title label example.